Alright guys, this is my workout number 4 that I've got coming for you. Got a nice little leg day today to try to really put on some size into the quads and hamstrings and some glutes. So let's get it going. First exercise I got for you guys today is a lying leg curl. Now normally in a workout what you would do is you start with your heaviest compounds. But with this one, I took this from John Meadows, and what we do is we like to add in the hamstring curls beforehand before we do any big compound movements like squats. What this does is this allows for your squats to feel significantly better. So that's why we're just gonna crush these out first. So with the lying hamstring curls, I want you to really pull yourself up as tight as possible by the handles. You wanna brace through your core, so actually flex your abs and crunch in. Otherwise, what's gonna happen is your hips are gonna pull off of the pad as you go throughout the reps. With each rep, you wanna make sure that you're starting out very slow. Reason being is your calf muscles, your gastroc and your soleus are actually the main drivers that start with your knee flexion, and then your hamstrings finish the rest. So if you hammer each rep out real hard right at the beginning, you're really gonna be leaving a lot of growth on the table for your hamstrings. You're just gonna be getting a lot more in your calves. With these, take these real nice and slow, all the way up and all the way down, full control the whole time, and that's the best way to get your hamstrings to grow. So for the first compound movement today, we've got back squats. Now, one of the longest fallacies that has been around when it comes to squats is not allowing your knees to travel over top of your toes. Fuck that shit. Don't even think about that at all. You want your knees to travel over top of your toes, and what that's gonna do is that's gonna allow for more knee flexion, which causes more quad growth. While performing the back squat, you wanna make sure that the bar is located up, not too high up on your neck and not too low around your back either. Where I personally like to have it is resting on top of my rear delts, as you can see here. After you unrack the bar, take a couple steps back, make sure that you're nice and safe. Have your legs spread to just slightly more than shoulder width apart, toes slightly pointed outwards, and ensure that your femurs are rotated so that your knees are going to travel directly over top of your feet. The breathing pattern for squats is you want to inhale heavily at the top, not too deep, but you're gonna brace your core and you're gonna hold that breath the entire way down until you're about 2/3 of the way up throughout the rep. At the top of the rep, you're gonna exhale, you're gonna brace again, go through some more. One common problem that a lot of people have when they do back squats is they get a little bit of a butt wink because they're going too deep. And what this is where your pelvis will tilt underneath your body, and this actually takes tension off of the muscle and just push it throughout your structure, which we want to avoid to make sure we can ensure maximal growth. I always recommend trying to take most of your sets close to failure. So with this exercise, it can be a little bit more dangerous to do so. Always make sure that your safeties are in. I do heavily recommend using the safety bars if you don't have a spotter, just to be safe. Next exercise we got for you are the dumbbell RDLs. So with the Romanian Deadlift, the focus is actually to be hitting your glutes, your hamstrings significantly more than anything else. The reps for this exercise start at the top of the range while you're standing completely upright. To start this exercise, what you're gonna do is you're gonna think about driving your hips backwards. You wanna try to push them back as far as possible. Once they are at the full end range, that is the end of the rep. You do not wanna keep going further into depth after your hips have reached the furthest distance, because then it's just gonna be lower back instead. With these, we're also gonna be only performing them 3/4 reps, and what this is gonna do is gonna allow you to keep tension in your hamstrings and glutes throughout the entire set, which makes it a little bit more effective. Foot placement for dumbbell RDLs, I like to have my feet relatively close together, so about hip width apart, but I have my toes slightly pointed in as well. I find that this really hits my glutes significantly more than if I have my feet straight or slightly outward. Give it a shot. Next compound movement we got for you here is the reverse banded hack squats. Now the reason that we like to use the reverse band on this is as you get into the deepest part of the range is when it's the absolute hardest. And for a lot of people this can be really hard on your knees. But I like to take full range of motion for all my exercises, and I recommend it for most people. So with putting this band around the back, what this does is it matches the strength curve to the resistance curve, because you are going to be weakest at the bottom of the rep range, and that is also where the load is going to feel the heaviest. So this way it feels the same throughout. Now, with the foot placement, I want you to have a higher and wide foot placement with toes pointed outwards. Ensure that your femurs are also rotated out so that your knees are going to travel over the top of your toes. The reason that we have a wide stance for this is I want it to focus more of your adductors. Now, because a lot of people in the past really wanted thigh gaps, but today thigh gaps aren't the cool thing. So we want to make sure that there's thick legs. And your adductors really help with that. So for tempo for these, what I want you to do is I want you to take a 1 to 2 full second eccentric all the way down, and I want you to really powerfully shoot out through the bottom. No pausing at the top, and just run through and finish your whole set front to back. Okay, so now we're gonna move into a unilateral movement of the single leg press. Now in this, I actually have this banded as well. So think about how the reverse band on the hack squat matches the strength curve there. We're doing the exact same with this, just with the opposite kind of aspect. So as you allow the platform to drop down closer to you, the weight is actually going to feel like it's significantly heavier than it was up at the top. And so what we're doing is adding the band adds resistance as you push away. Now with a single leg press, what I like most about this, I find it really helps build that outer sweep in your quads. For foot placement, I want you to do lower and narrow. And what this is gonna do, it's gonna allow for maximum knee flexion. So as you're performing the rep and you're allowing the platform to come down, I want you to ensure that your pelvis and your hips stay in place, but you're driving your knee upwards. That's the thought process. And once you're at that full range of motion, you're gonna push through your heel all the way through. And remember, do not lock out your knees up at the top of these reps. With all unilateral movements, you always wanna make sure that you start with your weak side first and that you're matching reps with your strong side. If you're unsure what that is, give it the exercise a shot with your warm-up and figure out which side you think would be your weak side and start with that one first. So back into a little bit more hamstrings, we're gonna do the single leg stiff-legged deadlift. So with these, what I recommend is you stand beside a bench so that you can ensure that you have proper balance throughout the entire movement. You're going to hold the dumbbell in the opposite hand of the leg that you're working. What this is gonna do is gonna help assist to make sure that your pelvis stays square. If you're completely twisting around, you're not gonna be hitting the muscles the way that you really want to be. After you've decided which leg you're gonna be working on first, you're holding onto the bench, what I want you to do is you hold the dumbbell up in front of you, you lift your other leg slightly up off the ground, and you just hinge at the hip perfectly. You know, think about like one of those old school bird feeder things that you just dip down and pick up the water. You might look like might look a little weird, feel a little weird, but that's kind of what we're going for. But it doesn't matter if you look weird, feel weird, because you're gonna be growing some nice hamstrings in the process. So now just to finish off burning up the quads, what we're gonna do is we're gonna just do one final working set on the leg extension. And we're gonna do high rep range, somewhere between 15 and 20 reps. I want you to make sure that you're holding on to the grips as tight as possible to ensure that your hips are not coming up off of the pad. And I want you full range of motion, nice, hard, fast, strong contractions, and fairly fast, controlled eccentrics. So to pair in with the wide hack splits that we were doing to work on your adductors, we're actually gonna be using the Abduction Machine here as well. This is another good way to make sure that you really close off those thigh gaps. Now with these, what I personally like to do is lift my feet off of the little foot pads, and I find I get a significantly better contraction, and it makes the exercise significantly more effective. The reason I have these in here for adductors and not the abductors is most people's adductors are actually weak in comparison to their abductors. One of the upsides to having strong adductors is it can help a lot of knee stability as well. So if you found yourself with like the squats or the hack squats or anything like that, where your knees might be waving a little bit at the bottom of the rep range, significantly working on your adductors will help with that. Okay, so and lastly, we have calf raises. Now here at the Gym in the North, we have both different calf raise machines. We have a seated calf raise and a standing calf raise. Seated calf raise. Now both of these have their own advantages and disadvantages. Now both of these have standing calf raise. It's going to be a little bit more of your gastroc because your gastroc does standing calf raise. It's going to be a little bit being that that will be in its lengthened position, in the standing, you should be able to lift more with your calves. With the seated calf raise, the thing that I dislike the most about this is that with the handle there on top, a lot of the times the seated like these legs are going to slip out from underneath, and so most people end up grabbing onto the handles, and a lot of the times with the lift with their arms. I do not recommend holding onto the handles. With doing the seated calf raise, you can add a little bit of advantage to the soleus muscle that's in your calf as well. Not by leaps and bounds, but a little bit. With each rep with either of these exercises, what you want to do is you want to make sure you take them nice and controlled the whole time. Do not bounce through. As you might notice, there's a lot of people walking around with really small calves. If you watch them do their calf work, they're bouncing and just trying to hammer it out as fast as possible, and that's part of the reason why their calves don't grow. Alright guys, now that right there is a static leg day for me. Give it a shot and let me know how you guys are feeling. If you guys have any questions, you might notice there's a lot of people walking around with really small calves. If you watch them do their calf work, they're bouncing and just trying to hammer it out as fast as possible, and that's part of the reason why their calves don't grow. Did I not say that?
You did, but it was kind of broken up.
Okay,
so
yeah.
I'm just going to have you say that so that I can
100%.
in there.
Yeah, I do not recommend holding onto the handles.
Perfect.